I took the office of a new mom, and I'm not giving it back. Back in 2023, our building's quiet corner had an office with a smudged window that caught the sunset like it owed rent. It belonged to Jen. She left on maternity leave, everyone signed a card, there were cupcakes, the usual. After the baby, she switched to WFH under the company's generous-ish program, which meant the room sat empty. I was marinating in a cubicle that felt like a shoebox with a heartbeat, so I asked my manager if I could move in. They said yes. No drama, no secret handshake, just a green light and a dolly for my stuff. Fast forward to now. The company announces the WFH program ends on November 17, 25. Everyone back in the building by that date. Cheers died in throats. Groans rolled across Slack. Yesterday the WFH crew came in for tours and desk assignments, HR shepherds with clipboards, the vibe of a school field trip to a tax office. That's when Jen walked past my open door, stared at my desk, and the air tightened. She stopped. Is this my office? I looked up, kept my voice even. It was. I moved in during your WFH. I put in the request, got approved. Her face did this careful thing people do when they're trying not to show the exact thing they're feeling. Okay, but I'm coming back, she said like she was stating gravity. So, I'll be moving back in here. Right. I told her flatly, I don't intend to give up the office. She blinked. A clean, controlled inhale. I'll talk to my manager. She did. Management got looped. We did the dance. Decision came back faster than microwave popcorn. I was under no obligation to move. My manager asked once if I wanted to reconsider and go back to a cube. I said no, and that was that. It sure didn't flinch. Policy is policy. 24 hours later, the narrative swelled like a bruise. A couple coworkers started giving me the look, the one people reserve for someone who speaks too loudly in elevators. A Slack message landed with the soft menace of ellipses. Kinda rough to make a new mom sit in a cube, no? Someone else chimed in with the greatest hits. Empathy, fairness, community, we're a family here, all sung in lowercase with reaction emojis. Jen emailed me directly, polite, composed, heartbreaking in a way. She asked me to consider her position that she's already being punished by the company by being forced to return, and asked if I'd consider her feelings. I do. I did. But my spine didn't turn to steam. I like my office. I like the quiet, the window, the door, the way the room keeps secrets. I've got equipment set up the way I need it. And if I'm honest, the solitude made me better at my job, not worse. I wrote back, I'm sorry this is hard. I'm not moving. And now, somehow, I'm the villain in a story where the dragon is a floor plan. Look, I get it. Jen didn't ask for a policy change. None of us did. But I didn't take her office in the night with a lockpick. I did it out in the open, waltzing through the front door of the process like a citizen. Still, here's where the internet demands you bare your soul. I don't just want to be technically right. I want to be fair. So I started asking myself the question you're about to ask me. If I vacated, would Jen even get the office back? Because it's not like I can scribble her name on the door and sharpen. This place has a process. A lottery. A pecking order that was set in concrete by people who live on spreadsheets and cold brew. So this morning I checked with HR. I wanted policy, not vibes. Here's the unromantic truth. You don't get to assign an office to your friend, your enemy, or your favorite barista. If I move out, the room goes back into the pool. Seniority points. Bid windows. All that. And there are returnees more senior than her. One of them already prowling for a glass box with a view. Translation. If I walk away, Jen likely doesn't get it anyway. The company will send a memo reminding everyone of the process, as if bureaucracy were a hug. I also brought Jen's email to my manager. They're going to respond and CC Jen's manager. This matter is closed, is the phrase I heard. Firm ironed. Done. But offices are haunted by more than drafts and old coffee. They're haunted by stories. And stories move faster than memos. By lunch, a coworker dropped a cold wow. Another told me, you know this will follow you. There's a version of me taking shape in group chats where I wear a cape that says anti-mom. That's not who I am. It's just those are the shapes people draw when all they have is shadow and silhouette. This is where you ask me, AITA? Okay. Before you decide, know this. I'm not gloating from some oak-paneled throne. I'm just trying not to be washed away by a tide of everyone else's feelings about a decision that wasn't mine to make in the first place. That office saved my attention span. It saved my temper. It made my 8 hours feel less like a marathon against noise. I did the paperwork, got the approval, and did the job. And now the company wants all of us back in, so we're all losing something. Some lose flexibility. Some lose the commute cushion. I lose my privacy if I let go. I lose the door that tells the world, please knock. That matters. But let's press on the bruise. If I move out, Jen probably doesn't get it. That's the cruelest part. I could torch my own comfort and at the end, watch some senior dev named Mark staple his whiteboard to my wall and say, I love natural light, like he invented photons. Then Jen's back at a cube anyway, and I handed my sanity to a policy lottery. Does that make me noble? Or just naive? My manager thinks this is already resolved. HR agrees. The policy memo is scheduled, the email is drafted, the universe is, in theory, returning to its orbit. But stories don't care about orbits. They prefer comets, bright, fast, and aimed right at glass. At 4:43 p.m., I found a note taped to my door. Just a single line, sharply bleeding through the paper like it wanted out. Enjoy it while it lasts. Because something is about to happen that will make policy look like a paper umbrella in a storm. I came in today braced for the echo chamber, half expecting a chorus of pointed sighs by the coffee machine. What I walked into was worse. The temperature had shifted. People weren't sighing, they were smiling at me. Too pleasantly. The kind of smile that says, we screenshotted something. I learned what within the hour. A screenshot of Jen's email to me had leaked into a team-adjacent Slack channel. Not the whole thing, just enough to make it confessional. I didn't share it. I wouldn't. But someone did, and it framed me like a statue in a museum exhibit called Office Greed. There were reactions. Threats. Someone wrote, I bet they'd hand it back if leadership actually cared about families. Someone else suggested swapping spaces 1 day a week. Then a comment that twisted in my gut. Some people don't know what compromise looks like unless it's printed on their door. My manager DM'd me, we're shutting down the Slack chatter. HR is posting the policy reminder. Do not engage. There are times in life when do not engage is wisdom. This time it felt like being asked to watch a tea kettle scream in another room. HR's memo went out at 10:17 a.m. Corporate voice, bullet points, calm thunder. Offices are assigned via the standard bidding process. No direct reassignments. No exceptions. Bids open after November 17, 25. End of message. A few thumbs up reactions, a few eye rolls. Policy moved through the building like a slow elevator. Here's where it got complicated. By lunch, 3 different people stopped by my door to just chat. The chats weren't chats. They were little morality plays. A guy from finance told me, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying optics matter. A product manager said, have you considered a symbolic gesture? Like offering a temporary swap. Symbolic gestures are the currency of people who can afford them. Sometimes I can. Today I can't. Then IT rolled a cart past and parked suspiciously close to my wall. The tech asked, hey, is this the room with the network drop that needs relabeling? I said I didn't know. He said it might get repurposed. He said a lot of things casually, too casually, like someone had told him something that hadn't made it to me yet. At 2:03 p.m., a new calendar invite hit. Facilities walkthrough, 3:30 p.m. Required. No agenda. The invite had HR, facilities, my manager, a senior manager I've never met, and, of course, Jen. I stared at the blue block in my calendar like it was a bruise I couldn't explain to a doctor. I pinged my manager. They said, it's just a walkthrough. Right. And a shark is just a fish that makes headlines. I went to the break room to breathe. The microwave hummed like it knew secrets. That's when someone I barely know said, you okay? I guess my face told the whole story. Or the Slack did. I asked them what they thought, honestly no PR. They said, I think workplaces are built to make you fight each other for scraps while policies stay holy. I think you're not the villain. I think you're the only one being honest about the cost. I wanted to put that on a poster. At 3:30 we walk the office. Facilities guy has a clipboard with a smile that's been to training. He measures the wall. He checks the window latch. The senior manager makes a few comments about space utilization and equity across teams. HR says words like transparency and alignment. Jen looks at the carpet like it might answer for something. My manager stands next to me, arms folded, not saying a word. Finally, the senior manager clears his throat. We're doing a reset post November 17th, he says. To be fair to everyone. My ribs tighten. Fair how? Fair as in we'll open bidding fresh after the return. He gestures vaguely. This space might be repurposed as a huddle room or kept as an office, depending on demand. Jen looks up startled. So, nobody gets it yet? HR answers crisp, correct. Until bidding opens, current assignments remain in place. That should have been the end. But the senior manager adds, we also encourage team-level compromises where possible. I feel my jaw set. Compromises like what? He smiles. We trust you to be creative. Translation, we can't make you move today, but we're not going to shield you from the social storm either. Build your own umbrella. After they leave, my manager leans on the doorframe. This will pass, they say. It always does. Maybe. But something else didn't pass. When I sat down, there was a small package on my chair. No return label. I opened it. Inside, a pacifier and a post-it note. Give the room back. I did what grown adults do when confronted with preschool-level pressure. I laughed. Then I didn't. Because it wasn't funny. It was a line crossed with a crayon drawn hard enough to rip the paper. I took it to HR. They said they'd look into it. Which is corporate for, we'll file it next to the broken chairs and missing forks. That night I couldn't sleep. My ceiling turned into a projector for every angle of this, including the ones where I'm wrong. I thought about Jen's email. I thought about my own irritation with how loudly the cubicle floor breathes. I thought about fairness. I thought about how often people ask the person who followed the rules to be the sacrificial lamb because it's easier than confronting the system that wrote the rules in disappearing ink. Morning arrived like a verdict. I got to the office early. The hall smelled like Windex and stale hope. I opened my door, stepped inside, and the quiet wrapped around me like a promise. Then I saw it. On the back of the door, someone had taped a printout of the original announcement. WFH ends November 17, 25, all employees return. Someone had highlighted that line in neon yellow. And at the bottom, in the margin, a sentence in the same sharper from yesterday. If you don't move, we will. I didn't know who we was. But I was about to find out, because the next knock on my door wasn't a knock. It was the sound of a key. I wish I could tell you this next part was a simple HR cleanup, a tidy memo, a polite apology, and the end credits rolling over a polite email thread. It wasn't. It was messier, pettier, and sharper in all the small ways office life knows how to be. The key turned. The door didn't open all the way. My deadbolt was set from inside, but the handle yanked like someone testing the strength of agreements. I stood up, opened the door, and found facilities plus a guy from security who looked irritated at the concept of furniture. Hi, facilities said, cheerful in the way of people about to tell you your kitchen is being torn out. We need to check the window seal for a draft complaint. Right now? I asked because apparently we don't do foreplay. He glanced past me at my shelves at the way I'd carved a life into this rectangle. Won't take long. I stepped aside. They examined the window like it had secrets worth stealing, tugged, measured, made notes. Security scanned the hall like someone had planted a revolution. When they left, the facilities guy said, you might see more activity in coming weeks. There's talk. Then he smiled like gravity's a joke. As soon as they were gone, my manager pinged, stop by. I went. Door closed. Deep breath. Do you want the clean version or the real version? They asked. Real. Leadership wants peace, they said, which is always what leadership wants when they've stirred the pot and now don't like the noise. They won't override the policy. But they want this to stop being a slack circus. How? They want you and Jen to meet. Not a mediation. A conversation. Air quotes so big they needed their own batch. I said yes. Not because I wanted to, but because saying no would become the new headline. We scheduled it for late afternoon. HR would attend. Jen accepted in 90 seconds, which told me she's as tired of this as I am, or she's been waiting for this all day. In the meantime, word leaked that the office would go back into the general pool after November 17th, which everyone knew, but somehow hearing it out loud turned rumor into policy. The senior folks warmed up. Whoever was sharpening pitchforks started polishing resumes instead. The thread about me cooled, then splintered into other gripes as threads do when the adrenaline burns off. At 4 p.m. we sat in a glass room that reflected us back like a bad magic trick. HR opened, This is not an adjudication. Music to nobody's ears. We want understanding. Everyone's favorite corporate flavor. Jen spoke first. I didn't mean for this to blow up like it did, she said. I've been home with a newborn. The idea of returning and not having something familiar felt like my last bit of control evaporated. It hit me. Not as a weapon. As a truth. The office wasn't just a room to her. It was an anchor to the idea that her old life still had a chair reserved. And the company was ripping up the seating chart on the day she walked back in heels that didn't fit anymore. I said, I get that. Then, but I didn't take it from you as a power move. I requested it, I was approved, and I built a workflow that keeps me sane. I've got gear mounted, client calls that require a closed door, and a brain that works better when it isn't constantly being pinged by sound. She nodded. We sat there in the brittle quiet. HR tried to guide us to options. Hot swapping once a week. Interim sharing. My stomach clenched at the idea of ripping my setup apart on a schedule. Hers did too. I can't pump while bouncing between spaces, she said. The sentence like a knife. The room went sober. What do you actually want? I asked. Not the politeness. The real ask. She swallowed. I want leadership to follow their own damn policy and stop dangling hope like a carrot. If I'm not getting the office back until after bidding, fine, say it loud. Fine, say that. Don't turn me into a symbol and you into a villain while they hide behind forms. We stared at HR. HR blinked, slow as a metronome. And then, for once, they spoke like a person. Okay, HR said. We'll make that explicit. Today. We walked out with exactly what we walked in with, the current assignment stand. The memo lands. The office goes to the pool after November 17th. No special favors. No backroom deals. No more creative compromises that leave both of us resentful and exhausted. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a hug. It was a boundary. I went back to my office. The window caught the last light. I thought it was over. Then my inbox pinged with an anonymous burner address. Subject, you think policy will save you? Body, check the new pilot space plan. No link. No attachment. Just a claim. I almost deleted it. Then facilities dropped a new floor map in the shared drive 5 minutes later. The office I'm in? It's shaded gray. Proposed label, Mother's Room/Wellness. And the note below in 8-point font, blinking on my screen like a dare. Pending leadership approval, expedited. So now it isn't me versus Jen. It's both of us versus a plan that would turn this argument into a demolition. Because if this becomes a wellness room, there's no bidding. There's no pool. There's no me. There's no her. There's just a door with a sign that makes anyone who pushes back look like a monster. And the meeting about expedited approval? It's scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Right before HR promised to make it explicit. Now tell me, if I fight this? Or am I the only one refusing to pretend a bulldozer is a bouquet? I didn't sleep. At 6:12 a.m., I was in the parking lot staring at my reflection in the windshield like I could rehearse a better version of myself. The 9 a.m. meeting felt like a trapdoor with a calendar invite. If they rubber-stamped the wellness room label, the conversation died and the sign won. Any pushback would read as anti-mom, anti-wellness, anti-sanity. It's the kind of move leadership loves. Morality laminated to a floor plan. At 7:02 a.m., I sent one email that probably saved me. Subject line, alternatives to forced repurpose, data attached. I attached 3 months of my productivity stats, call logs, client close rates, everything that spiked when I got this office. No adjectives. No pleading. Just numbers like steel cables. Higher output, fewer errors, faster resolutions. I CC'd HR, my manager, facilities, and, yes, Jen. Then I added a second attachment. A one-page alternative plan with 3 empty conference rooms on the floor above that could be retrofitted as rotating wellness spaces within a week. I called it Option B, Quick Deploy Private Rooms. Cheap, fast, humane. No heroics, no budget circus. Just practicality sharp enough to cut bureaucracy. At 8:16 a.m., Jen wrote back, I support Option B. 2 words that mattered more than any of the niceties. Thank you. We were, for a second, on the same side of the chessboard looking at the hand that kept tipping the board. 9 a.m. hit like a gavel. Leadership, HR, facilities, my manager, a VP I'd only seen in town halls, and Jen joined a room that smelled like expensive air. The VP smiled in that generically benevolent way people smile when they're about to turn your life into an agenda item. HR opened. We're here to finalize repurposing room 4C as a wellness/mother's room. I watched the word finalize slip across the table like a blade. I've got new info, I said before the ritual could begin. You'll want to see the data I sent at 8:16. Also an alternative plan that meets the objective without sacrificing current output. I kept my voice level, not loud. No theatrics. I let the word output sit. Leaders worship output. It's their one true church. They looked. The VP skimmed, hit the graphs, slowed down. I could see the calculus behind his eyes shift as numbers rearranged the furniture in his brain. Facilities perked at low-cost retrofit. HR perked at privacy standards met. The VP did a careful nod. Option B, how fast? 3 rooms upstairs. Lockable doors, retrofitted with privacy film and mini fridges. IT can run badges today, soft furniture delivered by Friday. Signage by Monday. I had called vendors at 6:30 a.m. and got quotes. Yes, I did that. War is logistics. Facilities cleared his throat. Technically feasible. Jen added, steady, I need a guaranteed space by the return date. If option B is real, I'm fine with it. I don't want someone else's office. I want certainty. HR shifted in her chair. Suddenly this wasn't me versus her. It was us versus the idea that leadership solves conflicts by painting virtue words on walls. The VP weighed the optics, the budget, the email storm he knew was coming either way. We'll pilot option B, he said finally. Wellness space is upstairs. Immediate. Room 4C remains in current use until the post-return bidding cycle. I exhaled. You don't realize how much of your breath you've been paying as tax until someone hands a receipt. That should be the happy ending. But offices are not fairy tales, they're ecosystems. And ecosystems have predators that hunt in the fringes where policy is just shadow. By noon, the group chat that had been drafting me as the villain pivoted to leadership caved to metrics. Someone pasted a meme of a spreadsheet wearing a crown. Another joked, guess being heartless pays. It's wild how fast victory curdles into suspicion when people would rather hate a person than hold a system accountable. Then at 2:47 p.m. a new blow. Anonymous again. PDF. Subject, your numbers are fake. The PDF had screenshots of my dashboard with snide annotations, claiming inflated call logs and suspiciously improved SLAs. The kind of attack that tries to turn facts into fog. I looped in IT. We pulled access logs. We traced downloads. The screenshots were real, but the insinuation wasn't. Someone had spliced timelines to make peaks look like lies. It wasn't sloppy, it was surgical. The kind of malice that knows how to use a ruler. At 3:33 p.m. security pinged. Camera footage caught a late-night visitor by my door 2 days ago. Hoodie. Badge clipped inside a pocket. They paused long enough to stare at my nameplate like the letters had personally wronged them. Then they moved on. The timestamp matched the day the first sharpened note appeared. I told HR. They said, we'll investigate, and I heard every stapler that phrase has ever been used to drown out. So I did something people tell you not to do when you still believe systems are parents. I went public, internally. One Slack post. Come. Exact. No names. I've seen the doc claiming my metrics are fabricated. IT validated the data. Leadership has approved option B wellness rooms. Timelines and specs are posted. If anyone has concerns, you can bring them to me directly or to HR. I won't engage with anonymous attacks. I'll engage with facts. And then I logged off Slack, because attention is a currency and I'm done laundering it for other people's narratives. A knock on my door. It wasn't a key. It was an actual knock. Jen. No entourage, no clipboard, no performance. She stepped in, closed the door, and for the first time since this started, we were just 2 people in a box with a window. I'm sorry, she said, and I could feel how heavy those words are when they're not decoration. Not for the ask. For the collateral. I didn't want any of this to become this. Me neither, I said. But if we hadn't pushed, they would have rubber-stamped that sign. She looked at the glass. You know they still might. Yeah, I said. They might. She smiled, small and sharp. Then we push again. Something shifted. Not in policy. In posture. We weren't opponents. We were leverage. We drafted a joint update. She backed option B, I backed option B. We tagged facilities and HR. We asked for dates, not vibes. We asked for locks installed by Thursday, coats of paint by Friday, privacy film Monday morning. We turned pilot into schedule. And still, the quiet had teeth. At 5:11 p.m., someone slid one last note under the door like a snake shed skin. Enjoy your office, hero. We'll see how long the numbers protect you. I picked it up. I put it in a folder labeled noise. Because now there's a different clock ticking. The return date is fixed. The bid window is real. I'll have to defend this room then with the same thing I defended it with today: performance, clarity, and a refusal to be shamed out of a door I legitimately walked through. Tonight, I locked the door and stood at the window while the city exhaled. Lights came on like signal fires. Somewhere upstairs, facilities measured a wall that would be a mother's room by Friday. Somewhere in security, someone scrubbed footage. Somewhere in HR, someone drafted a policy memo that might actually say something this time. And somewhere in this building, whoever loves anonymous notes more than their own job is practicing their handwriting. Tomorrow, option B either becomes walls, or this story becomes gasoline. Morning hit like a drum you can't turn off. Facilities was moving, fast. Badge readers and boxes. Privacy film rolled out like frost. Signage typed and laminated. The sudden velocity told me two things. 1. Leadership wanted this off their plates before the full return. 2. Someone had whispered in the VP's ear that optics favored action. At 9:40 a.m., I got an unexpected DM from the senior manager who'd smiled through the Be Creative speech. We're implementing option B. Appreciate the data. Keep your head down. The last line read like a fortune cookie that thinks it's a bodyguard. Minutes later, a different ping, IT again. We traced the anonymous PDF upload to a personal device that was connected to guest Wi-Fi. We have a MAC address. We're coordinating with security. The message ended with, don't engage. The corporate bedtime story. At 11 a.m., HR sent the explicit memo they'd promised. It was one of those rare, clean documents that doesn't pretend to be anything else. Room 4C remains assigned to current occupant until the post-return office bidding cycle opens. 3 wellness rooms upstairs will be provisioned by Friday EOD. Any harassment related to space assignments will be investigated and disciplined. Slack posts targeting individuals over space disputes will be removed. Memes froze. Threads withered. You could feel the building reset like a phone after a hard crash. At noon, someone finally said the quiet part out loud in a side chat I was shown later. I don't even care about the office, I just hate that they're winning. That's not about fairness. That's about appetite. Hungry people bite. Doesn't matter if it's bread or your hand. At 2:15 p.m., facilities hung the first wellness sign upstairs. It was simple and clean and for once not weaponized. A mother with a laptop walked in with HR and smiled like a new key had been minted in a corridor that used to lock her out. I stood back, anonymous in the best way, unnecessary to the scene. Then, finally, the part of the story that changes the tone came with the kind of thud only truth carries. Security asked me to come by. They had the hoodie on camera again, this time clear. It wasn't who the rumor mill would have cast. No cartoon villain. No exec's favorite. It was a mid-level project coordinator who'd been in our building long enough to know how to hurt without leaving fingerprints. The motive didn't surprise me. Her bid for my office was already penciled in on her private scoreboard. The anonymous notes, the doctored PDF, they were pressure, sabotage, and audition all in one. HR pulled her in. She denied. Then IT placed the MAC address. Then security showed the frame where she slid the note under the door. She crumbled. People think they're oceans. Most of us are jars. Consequences were quiet and immediate. Not a firing, that's rare unless the headline is already public. But a suspension pending review, access revoked, a note in a file that will sing when the next promotion window opens. Justice in offices is boring. Paper cuts, not swords. Around 4 p.m., Jen found me again. They showed me the wellness room. It's actually nice, she said, surprise peeling through the last days of tension. Fridge is cold. Lock works. Chair doesn't squeak. The trivia that makes rooms livable. How's your desk assignment? I asked. Cube for now, she said, with a shrug that looked like acceptance, not resignation. I'll bid later. If I get it, great. If not, I'll survive. I've survived weirder. We stood at the window shoulder to shoulder because sometimes détente looks like two people sharing light. She laughed. You know the internet will still call you the villain. I know, I said. But my job isn't to audition for their morality play. She nodded. Mine neither. And that should be it. But here's the final twist, because there's always one more. At 5:22 p.m., the VP sent a building-wide note rolling out a new framework for space transparency. It wasn't perfect, but it did two holy things. It published the bidding schedule and the criteria, and it banned mid-cycle office swaps without written approval. Translation: no more shadow deals. No more, I found a key. He didn't credit me or Jen. Good. Real fixes don't need applause, they need permanence. I tidied the room for the first time since I felt like I had to defend its existence. Coiled cables. Dusted the sill. Straightened a book. Closed the door not as a barricade but as a boundary. On my way out, I passed the upstairs hallway. A mom in a cardigan closed the wellness room door behind her. The sign glinted. Nobody flinched. Nobody weaponized it. It was just there. Function doing its job without wearing a cape. Was I the holy? No. Not for asking the system to obey itself. Not for protecting work that's better when it has a door. Not for refusing to be guilted into a gesture that wouldn't have helped the person it was allegedly for. The holy was the machine that tried to turn a policy into a morality test, and the bystanders who enjoyed the spectacle like it was free popcorn. Did I win? No. We converted a collision into architecture. That's not winning. That's adulthood. If you're looking for a neat bow, you're in the wrong thread. What you get instead is a window. And on the other side of it, a reflection you can live with. Now do your thing, Reddit. I'll be here, behind this door I earned, doing my job, ready to bid again when the clock says so. If I lose then I'll lose to rules, not whispers. And if someone slides one more note, I'll file it under compost. Some stories are meant to rot into fertilizer, not monuments. Your move, if you want a part 4, aftermath, bidding day, who gets what and how the building reacts, say the word. If not, take this as the lesson it is. Don't let anyone sell you a moral verdict that comes stapled to their convenience.